Hello again, Struckwap. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Warhammer Chaosbane, and this one is for the new character Keela Gunnarsdottir. The build is for the explosion centric set Powder Air, or also known on the items as Powder Carrier, and it is all about the Mortar skill, and I've included a passive for scrapping. That's why I called the build Mortar Scrapper. So it is a fun build, but it's not as good as the build I uploaded yesterday, my melee based build, melee centric build. So this is all about explosions, but I would not suggest going to Chaos 10. Even Chaos 9 could be a bit difficult, but it is doable, so it's not like it can't do Chaos 9. So I tested it with different versions of the items I'm using and with different god skills. The footage you're seeing right now at the start of the video would be the one with the more damage from passives, from god skills, but with more survivability from items. The other options would be with the exact same items, just with slightly different passives for less damage but more cooldown. So here you're seeing something with less cooldown, but later you would see something with a little bit more cooldown added into the mix. So you can see the damage is not that great, and the build requires a lot of actions per minute. It requires you to constantly keep picking up scrap to keep those stacks at 10 and to not let them dissipate. And since I'm using a ring that requires me to pick up Bloodlust Orbs for 20% damage reduction, I'm now also doing that as well. So you need to be doing that all the time. You need to be running around the enemies, picking up scrap, using Mortar to keep damaging them and healing yourself with the health drain. So it is okay. In the gear section I forgot to tell people about health drain being a good stat, but it should be there as a reminder from text. So I hope you enjoy explosions, because this build is all about them, and I hope you enjoy burning enemies, because this build does it. It's not as good as the melee, as I said, but some people might enjoy this playstyle more, and if you find better ways to play this setup and this set, do let me know. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the build guide, starting with the skills and passives, and then moving on to the god skills, gear, and finally more gameplay at the end. For this build, skill wise, after a lot of testing, I decided to use something like this: heavy pounding mustard, heroic mortar, engineer of war superior, makeshift automaton superior, explosive rush, the basic one, move mountains, the basic one, and then passive wise recycling mustard for that up to 50% extra damage, and cooldown reduction, 1 cooldown reduction for each scrap we pick. Then radiator, upgraded radiator mustard for up to 100% damage on the overheat explosion, which is not really what I want. It's actually the damage reduction why I took this. Turret armor for damage reduction, gelatinous pitch also for damage reduction against burning enemies. So when we are using mortar on bosses, we keep burning them, and this keeps giving us some damage reduction against them. This is completely experimental. You could try and use something else. Another thing I was using before was the turret based damage reduction, this one here, so we can spam turrets. So just experiment, see what you like. Those are my two options: gelatinous pitch or upgraded automatons superior. So for this one you have to be a bit close to the turret, but it is worth it, because you would have 20 instead of 10%, so you would be surviving a bit more. Just not gonna get that damage, so maybe do it like that, with the turret instead of gelatinous pitch. Then duelist chain reaction for up to 400% crit damage. I'm gonna show you in a moment where to get this, and alternating pistons superior for more 20% damage reduction for 4 seconds, followed by 4 seconds of damage, and then again back to the damage reduction. And it heals 10% HP every time it swaps stances like this. You can see how it changes and it heals. So this is where you get the duelist chain reaction. And if you wanna get the duelist chain reaction but are kind of having hard time with the corruption resistance, you need to take this one, then you need to take this one, and then maybe take this and this before moving on to the duelist chain reaction. I myself didn't need to grab those 30% corruption resistance, and I was fine with just those 30%, and I could go all the way to there. So let's talk about the legendary ranks. I like using ones that give me damage reduction. This cannot give you more than 20% damage reduction and 50% damage, but you can still get more chance if you want. This one can give a bit more damage reduction. I'm not sure what the cap on this one would be. Let's see. Does this have a cap? Yeah, this one has cap at 30% damage reduction, so that's the cap for that one. So kind of find a balance of what percentages you want, but I strongly suggest going for the damage reduction ones when you can. These are the two ones. If you want more damage for the lower difficulties, get something like a mix between this and this maybe, and it would help you a lot. A good synergy might be this one with the explosions, but I'm really not sure how great that would be. Just check at the damage. It is a good synergy, and you might want to experiment with this, but I'd rather focus on the survivability, on the damage reduction, rather on the other parts of the build. So something like that is what I like to do. A balanced chance and damage reduction from reinforcement and legendary crushing. For the god skills, I've tested a few things and I decided to stop on a balanced setup that is taking some crit damage and damage, but it's also taking a little bit of cooldown reduction, just that 3%, and also some champion damage reduction to help against bosses and big boys. So where does the crit damage come from? From all the way to here, that's 130, and then from all the way to here, that's another 130 for a total of 260 crit damage. Then we want the damage reduction, the 50% damage reduction that comes from move mountings combined with Engineer of War Superior. And after we do that, we are left with 5 points. And I decided to spend 1-2 points here to get the cooldown reduction, and then 1-3 points here to get the champion damage reduction. Options for those 5 points would be getting 6% armor, 2% HP cooldown reduction for the price of energy, or doing the exact same thing on that side. Mind you, you need for those for that second part here, for those god skills, the second god skill tree, you need to own the Tomb King's DLC or the Magnus edition or the Seasons Pass, which includes that DLC. So another option would be 1-3 points into HP, and then again 1-2 into cooldown. Or you can even do something like this: 1-2-3 for this champion damage reduction, which gives you 2 times armor instead of 2 times HP, and still get that cooldown. I mean, there's a few options you can do, but with 5 points there's not that many places where you can get stuff. I mean, if you had one more point for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you could get extra 6%, extra 3% cooldown reduction, but then you have to sacrifice some crits, and it kind of feels bad having to sacrifice 40 crit to get 3% cooldown reduction and 5% HP. You can experiment, you can even go all in on the damage, and let me know if you found the setup you like, so I can test it myself as well. So now let's talk about the wood. Let's talk about the gear. So for the gear, you can see I've decided to stop on the powder air set. Powder air, of course, is the one that gives us the heroic mortar, and I wanted to make a mortar based explosions build. And I was expecting to be using certain things that I ended up not liking because I needed more survivability. One of those is me using heavy pounding instead of the basic attack with the rockets and with the explosions. So you can see, along with that, I'm currently using rock splitter because I don't know, it's the only hammer I like. It gives me survivability. I know it doesn't give me damage other than damage for my melee attacks, but that 20% damage reduction is amazing. I experimented with some other hammers like the Forge Heart, didn't really like that. Experimented with the Stonebreaker, well, it doesn't go well with that build. You have to keep your stacks up under 20%, so that's for Jetstream based setups. And I experimented with the turret based hammer as well, but it just doesn't go well. This one doesn't go well with that setup. So basically this hammer seems to be the best for now. Pistol wise, the best pistol in the game for this build is broken forge, but it doesn't do more damage, so those stacks don't build up on the enemies. So for now your second best choice is a corroder. Corroder is great, and it's kind of wonky. I wish they would make the circle spin around us, because currently while I'm in combat the circle kind of randomly spins. Not spins, but randomly moves around the map. It would be nice if it just kept spinning and orbiting the character. If it keeps orbiting the character, you can kind of move yourself so that the circle is always on an enemy when you're kind of close range to mid range. Or if the circle would automatically go wherever you are attacking. Or even better, make the circle constantly be around us. And force us to use that pistol for close range. But for now, use a corroder. It's the second best choice after Forge Butt, but since Forge Butt is broken, that's the choice. Mountain Pendant is great. I don't have good rolls on mine, but it's great to keep that cooldown down. If you don't have one, you could try using Bloodstone Pendant to heal when using God skills, or even the, was it Endless Slaughter, this one that gives you extra damage for the God skills. But Mountain Pendant would be the best, so you can spam Mortar more often. Then ring wise, you are looking at something like, for survivability, a combo between Gromril and Granite. If you think you can survive without the Granite ring, I would suggest a very good road Fiery Ring of Tori would be fine, or a very good road Siegebreaker for more damage and some cooldown as well. But what I think they need to do in this game is they need to give the Siegebreaker and the Gromril ring an extra stat that increases the pickup range, the pickup radius for globes and scrap. As you can see, when I'm using skills with cooldown, scrap appears on the ground. And I need to walk right on top of it to pick it up, and this is just not right. It feels wrong, it needs to change. And the same goes for Bloodlust Orb. So I think if you have rings that force you to picking up this thing, at least increase the radius to pick up orbs and scrap. Maybe count the scrap as orbs, and that would be the best thing for this build. So hopefully the developers end up hearing this. So yeah, Gromril and Granite for survivability, and if you want more cooldown reduction, Fiery Ring of Tori for more damage, Siegebreaker. Of course you can experiment with other rings, but I think for the harder difficulties you will need that damage reduction. And now let's talk about the stats. The most important is cooldown reduction on helmet, preferably on the pendant and the two rings, and on the weapons. You want cooldown reduction on each of those. Then you wanna get good damage, good crit chance, good crit damage, HP and armor. Health regeneration is nice if you wanna be doing invasions. Damage resistance to damage over time is also nice, but it shouldn't be priority. Movement speed would always be nice on the boots, and it's the only place where you can get it. So try and maybe prioritize that on the boots. And I think pretty much that's it. Unless you're going for counter-attack damage build, don't worry about that stat. And I will be trying to make a counter-attack damage build for this one with the melee set, because that's probably the best one, a physical counter-attack based excavation build probably. So let's show you some more gameplay. Oh, and just before I do that, I forgot to tell you about the gauntlets. It's the place where you need to get damage and crit damage, because that's the only armor piece where you can get damage and crit damage, so hopefully you get that. And now onto the gameplay part. So the way this build is played is not that difficult, but it might require faster actions per minute and more awareness of your surroundings. You have to keep picking up those scraps to build up that up to 50% extra damage with 10 stacks, and when you see a Bloodlust orb you have to pick it up for 20% damage reduction if you're using the ring for damage reduction, or if you're using the Siege Breaker ring for some extra damage, 50% on top of that. And yeah, it's nice because at least you can avoid face tanking stuff and focus on kiting, spamming meteors from the side and getting those cooldowns down by collecting scrap. Of course it's not gonna be as fast killing bosses and clearing mobs as my build from yesterday that's melee centric, but it's still an interesting and fun build that hopefully some of you would enjoy playing. You can see the boss fights take a bit longer, that's why here I'm including 3 consecutive different boss fights, so you can see kind of some ways to do that. The game was generous to me and it was giving me mostly Act 3 maps, which is kind of, in my opinion, the easiest act to do for Relic Hunt, so thankfully I got like 5 or 6 out of 7 or 8 maps that I was recording. So experiment with the gear and let me know what you did. Play around by switching some of the damage reduction rings for maybe a Siege Breaker or other things, just see what fits best for which content. I do suggest damage reduction for the higher content, but for the lower one you don't need as much, and a Siege Breaker ring could be well if you can get those orbs, or maybe something else that you might like. Just let me know in the comment section what ways of playing this set and this build you might have found that might be worth testing out for me. I'm always open to suggestions. So if you need some help, if you need some hints and tips, you can always hop by to my stream if I'm streaming, regardless whether I'm streaming Chaosbane or not. I would be always happy to provide some answers and some hints. If you enjoyed this video, you could subscribe to my channel to get notified for more content updates for games like Chaosbane, Torchlight 3, Wolves and Words of Mayhem, or other similar isometric looters, or as well sometimes for Borderlands 3 content. Thanks for watching the video, folks. Keep it cool. Until next time, and goodbye.